You are now listening to the Divorce Diaries podcast with your host, well, that's a secret. No names, ages, or any other identifying characteristics will be used as we protect the young and innocent. You'll be taken on a journey as one man considers getting a divorce or remaining married. The Divorce Diaries daily entries chronicle the decision-making processes in real time as they unfold day by day. He hopes to add a bit of clarity to his sometimes muddled mess of a marriage. Cheating, overspending, sex, sadness, and betrayal are the characteristics of this marriage. Is he making the right choice? Welcome to the Divorce Diaries. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else. At Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link below in description. Now for today's episode.
Finally, acceptance. Acceptance of big error that was made at the very beginning of my marriage and my relationship. Realizing now finally that my wife and I were never on the same page is telling. It shows why we can't work out. There's a big mistake that I think most of us make when we go into marriage because we're going into a lifelong commitment with someone that we're going to make some vows to that we may or may not uphold, all based on feelings that we have in the moment. I feel really good with you. We have a lot of things in common. We enjoy doing a lot of the same things. All of that is great. All of that is absolutely fantastic. But what it doesn't do, that type of vetting doesn't allow you to have a conversation about what you guys actually do agree on and not agree on. Both enjoying crab cakes or sushi or whiskey, those are interests. Liking dramas and the Matrix trilogy being on the top of your list, that's all good. That's great. But having a conversation about if we were to have kids and one of the kids broke a vase on purpose at the house and I wanted to spank the kid, what would you want to do? Whoa. All of a sudden, you immediately put on your snorkel and your goggles and you are dragged into the deep water known as contention. The other person could surprise you and say, yeah, I want to spank their little ass too. Whoa. Well, how far would you go? I want to use a broomstick. I want to beat them with an extension cord. Oh my gosh, whoa. You've just found out that this is a bridge too far. This person cannot be trusted. You don't even know if you want to have them watch a boiled egg. They might kill it. But seriously, corporal punishment is something that needs to be discussed. One person may think a slap on the wrist is adequate. The other person may think a slap on the wrist is too far. One person may think a swat on the rear end is okay. The other person may think it's too far. One person may think timeouts are too weak. One person may be totally against it. There could be many reasons for that. Could be things like, oh, my dad did this to me and my mom and I grew up watching and in this one movie I saw and I just couldn't stand it. It's okay. How about saving money? Does this person have credit card debt? And if so, how did they get it? Why did they choose to take it on? And how long have they had it? All of these answers will tell you something. The person may be a spender before they save. They may be a saver before they spend. They may look at credit as the credit building tool that it actually is to get larger loans. They may have business debt that was strategically taken out because they're a thinker and they're a strategizer. They may say, I don't even know where this debt came from because there's nothing but a slew of Starbucks and UGG boot purchases in their rearview mirror, or maybe just a statement riddled with QVC purchases and Home Shopping Network purchases. Small, but they add up over time. How about fitness? Do you like to get up every single day and go for a 4-mile run? And the person that you're with, they really enjoy relaxing and just sipping the coffee and looking at the paper, slowly getting fatter? Or is it somewhere in between? You've got to have these conversations. What if you're a night owl and the other person loves to be an early bird? That means, most likely, the window of time where you two would be the happiest together might be around 12 in the afternoon to 3 p.m. Because 12, the early riser hasn't gotten too tired yet, so they're still in a good mood around midday. And you, the late sleeper, you've gotten things done during the day, and now you're in a little bit of a lull, and you could use a little bit of a awakening and a freshening up. And it's great. Only problem is you both have 9 to 5s, and that sweet spot of time that you guys need to be together so your relationship can thrive when you guys aren't kind of meeting each other at the edges of cranky. You both are at work. And those people at work, your job, that's getting the best hours of your day. So if you talk about that, maybe one person is willing to do something a little bit different, to change things, and make sure that you guys can have some good time together. I'll go to bed a little bit later tonight. I'll get up a little earlier. This way we can compromise, because that's what the name of the game is. It's about compromise and respect. And that leads me into the ambitions that one of us might have. What if one person is super ambitious and then they like to start things, a lot of them, and they go really, really hard at those things? And another person likes to support, or the other person isn't very ambitious at all, which is maybe why you guys were drawn together. You love doing, and talking about what you're doing and building what you're doing and then unbuilding and rebuilding what you're doing because you're just so ambitious and you like getting stuff done. And the other person is not built that way, but they love to marvel, watch, and enjoy you live your best life. And at first, it sounded and felt really good because you were ambitious. But now, no. Now, them sitting on the sidelines is a little bit frustrating for you because you're so ambitious. You're like, hey, why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't you as ambitious as I am? Well, you guys never had a conversation about goals and ambitions and dreams. You didn't have any conversations about debt or political views. You kind of knew you maybe had to tread light with the woke stuff. You knew that your significant other wasn't really a big fan of the COVID lockdowns. You knew those things, but that's when those things happened. And a lot of people sort of broke up and had a lot of fizzling outs and a lot of bad fights, just like with politics. It's probably good to have a little bit of a conversation beforehand. And I will go as far as to say, it's probably good to, even if you have the conversation beforehand, you got to go a little bit deep. Because let's be honest, consider the country right now. A Trump supporter and a Biden supporter being married to each other, holy shit. If they are both really politically plugged in, and let's say they check most of the boxes on both of those sides, whoa, it's doubtful that that couple's actually going to be married. They may not. And it's a really big deal to find and acknowledge the page that you're on and find and acknowledge the page that your long-term relationship partner is on. Because you guys are going to have to talk about these things. You're going to have to consider what it's like living with a night owl if you get up really early. You're an early riser. Knowing these things will help avoid the devastation that I think most marriages incur. Because the box that you maybe need checked in the moment maybe isn't the box that you'll need checked in 5 or 10 years. And you need to maybe think of that. What really, really matters. You will have to boil down and peel that onion back to your moral set, your moral compass, your ideals. If your ideal deep down is, I do not like being pushed around, and when the government mandates we wear masks and there's no consensus, I feel like I'm being bullied. And the other person might say, hey, we're all in this together. No one person's freedom is more important than the freedom of the entire country. We all need to comply. Both of those points are understandable in my view. Well, one isn't, I'll be fair. But both of those points are sort of understandable. There's merit to them both. But can you coexist with someone that has such a fundamentally different moral and or ideal set or political view? Can you be staunchly pro-choice and be married to a pro-lifer? Can you? Should you is really the question. Because sure, you can. But can you guys happily be married and happily coexist? I don't know. All I know is my marriage is fucking coming to an end. This shit is a fucking catastrophe. And when you know that you're not on the same page with someone, you can really avoid the headache and the heartache of finding that out later in life after you've got 2.5 kids, a bunch of things intertwined, and you think, and you're looking back saying, I never fucking liked this person, or they never fucking liked me. How could they? I'm a Bible thumping Christian. How the hell? I like the fact that my boyfriend was an atheist or at best agnostic. I enjoyed that because it was a far departure from how I grew up. But I didn't realize how much I really valued the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I didn't realize just how deep that stream of consciousness ran through me. I don't like that my spouse is a more fend for yourself sort of person. I thought that we were all in this together, and my significant other said, every man for himself. And you got to stay with someone for a while on a very serious level, and you've just got to observe and try not to interject. Because observing lets you see how the person actually is going to handle how, let's say, you're with a guy and someone walks by him in a crowded place and someone bumps his arm. Does he say, hey, buddy, watch where the fuck you're walking? Or does he kind of turn around, take notice of it, and let it go? Or does he take notice of it and he happens to meet eyes with the other person and the other person doesn't say anything and he says, hey, what's your problem? You got to find out if the person that you're with may start problems, finish them, how violent they are, how measured, how controlled. Do they go into debt? Do they pout? Do they blame? Do they point fingers? And you've got to figure out those 3 F's, right? I did. Fight, flight, or freeze. And the only way you can find that out is when you guys actually go through something and you're there to watch the person. When something happens, when the shit hits the fan, are they fight? Or are they flight? Or do they freeze? And none of it really matters. It just needs to matter how you react to it. How do you react knowing that you might be with someone that when confronted with adversity, they typically run. They typically ignore. They put their head in the sand. Willfully ignore. Or they freeze. They don't do anything. Do you look at them as juvenile, unable to solve problems? Are you now worried that, oh man, what if we have kids and there is a decision that needs to be made? Can they do it? So does that shake your foundation of trust? What does it look like? What does it do? So yeah, these things are things that I really think, if considered, if I consider them, maybe I wouldn't be making this podcast because maybe I wouldn't be getting a divorce. I don't know the status of things as this recording is going to come out. I may already be divorced. But really getting to the bottom of it can help you avoid some of the feelings that I'm having now, where I look back and I'm like, not casting any blame on anyone, but maybe we should have never ever got married. I look at how wholly different we are. And yeah, you could say on the one hand, wow, we're two totally different people. Shut the fuck up. Everybody says that because everybody's different. But really, we're so different. How we handle money, how we view the world, how we make our decisions, impulsive versus not, spender versus saver. My wife and I, in a lot of ways, all of the ways that actually matter, we are so different, incompatibly oil and water, that it's right now, to me, it's almost a wonder that we're together. Knowing and accepting who my wife is now, I can say for sure and certain, if it weren't for my children, I would be totally fine in never speaking to her again. The way that my wife has moved with many people and relationships in her life, it is so polar opposite from how I move with people in my life. That's it. I'm not going to get that specific in this episode. When I was making the now probably maybe only on Patreon, red pill, rageful, horrible, toxic, blaming, whining, complaining like a bitch episodes, those aren't public anymore. They're not going to be. Because that shit was fucking toxic. That shit was, I mean, if I were to give one example, so my wife cheated on me, as I have said here before. And my wife went out shopping with my son and I to pick out this really nice, sexy pink dress. And she wore it that night that she left at about 8 p.m. and didn't come back until 6:30 in the morning. And that's when she was one of the times, I guess, she was with the man she was having an affair with. And once all this came to light by my horrible, manic searching and scouring and phone logs and doing all the bullshit that when you're feeling that strong about someone doing something, you should just go and just don't even try to find anything, even if you're wrong. Just like, if I feel like I have to search through your stuff and I'm not a searchy person, and I wasn't, but I didn't understand the amount of either direct and overt lies from my wife or her lies of omission, and just the way that she would just strategically leave things out, not tell you things. And you think a situation's one way, but she knows it's different. And I'm very, I'm going to tell you everything, which can usually get me into a lot of trouble because I don't really think about the feelings of other people. And my wife is a very feelings-based person. So me being the insensitive asshole that I definitely came off as a lot of the time, it definitely rubbed my wife the wrong way. And I mean, I'm sure if you heard her tell it, like, geez, because she said so often, like, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. It's your tone. And I didn't really understand it. I wasn't red pilled like I am now, because if I was red pilled before, I would have just spoken to my wife better. And I wouldn't have brought certain things up because she wasn't necessarily going to hear what I was saying logically. She was going to hear how it made her feel. So even that right there, if I don't want to walk on eggshells as I speak to someone, and I expect someone to say, okay, this word means this, that word means that, then I will just talk to you that way. And if I also want the person to say, like, hey, my intention wasn't to hurt you, I do want you to believe that, unless you can really point to something that makes me horrible and I did want to hurt you, which is a very hard thing to prove, because if someone is still engaging in a conversation with you, even though they've hurt you, they're like, oh man, I hurt you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. All I was saying was this. I understand that that's how I operated, and I could come off defensive and like I was passing the buck, like, hey, what the hell? What's your deal? What's the problem? I was just trying to do this. It's almost like I was just explaining things away. And I totally get it now. I understand it now. But had I asked these questions and taken my time before we got married, I would have said, okay, if I'm going to enter into a relationship with this person, I got to find out what page this person's on. Because I do. I care about them. I care about my wife. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want her to feel like the decisions she was making were, in my opinion, stupid. I didn't want to make her feel that way. But in my directness, me trying to be expedient, logical, short, to the point, I was curt, insensitive, and an asshole. And just more and more of that, it made things worse. Like, to continue on the pink dress story, when everything came to light, we were in the marital counseling therapy office, and I was lamenting, saying, hey, I really want her. It's right at the front of her closet. I see it every day, and it's a constant reminder of what she did. First, we'll take the piece of shit therapist. She says, don't get rid of it yet. Because my wife said something like, I feel that you're trying to control me. And if I throw this away, I'm allowing you to control me. And I said, what? First off, I'm asking that you throw it away. And I'm supporting my question for asking you to throw it away by telling you how it makes me feel. If I wanted to control you, I would say, get rid of it. I would go in and throw it away myself. But I was purposefully leaving it there because I wanted to see if my wife would just respect me. Do you respect me? Do you respect me enough to know how much seeing this hurts me? Can you empathize with why it hurts me? And can you get rid of it? Now, knowing what I know, that I married a person that did not care about how that made me feel. And in her defense, she has said, I always cared about how you felt, and now I'm finally taking into account how I feel. I don't want to be pushed around. I don't want to be told what to do. I feel like you've been in control of this thing the whole time, and now I'm sick of it. I'm done. No more control. So she felt as if she was righteously rebelling against who she felt was controlling her. But isn't that when we do the worst things for our life? I don't know for sure all of the damage that it did, my wife keeping that dress for as many weeks as she did. It did. It landed really well on me when she said, I'm getting rid of the dress. I forget how that manifested. But that was such a big moment for me. And I'm telling you, I forget how it manifested. And I know that I forgot how it manifested because there was so much bad blood around the dress. And it stuck around for too long, for too many counseling sessions, too much throwing it in my face. So since it was basically put out on me like a cigarette butt, it was just put on me and twisted into my skin, I was scarred. So even when you got rid of it, all I'm thinking of is the arguments that we had around the dress. Your refusal to get rid of the dress. The fact that you were still connected to something that you had sex with another man wearing. The fact that you purchased it with me and my son with you, and we didn't know what you were going to do that night. You knew what you were going to do. So I was chewing on that amount of betrayal and deceit. Had I had conversations before we got married to find out the type of person my wife was and understanding the type of person that I am, we both could have avoided a lot of headache by one, not getting married, or two, if we were going to get married, we could have set up some boundaries and some rules. But we all know how that works. The best decision would have been not to get married to this person, which is why if it weren't for the kids and me wanting them to have some sort of a happy life, the best thing for me would be to never see or speak to my wife again. because, not because of what she did or didn't do or anything like that. No, she just moves in a totally different way through life than I do. And we're just not simpatico. In fact, being with a person that lives a life the way my wife lives it just hurt me. It brought me a lot of net negatives. It brought me a lot of fear, a lot of uneasiness, I felt gaslit, and just there's so many things because she just operates that way. She needs to be with someone that's a little bit more on the surface, going deep and figuring things out and making a plan and keeping our word and not leaving anything out, not talking about people behind their backs within the family. You know what I mean? Like this, there's a lot of things that happened over the course of my marriage, and I was always barking at them. Why would you do that? How come you did that? Do you see what happened now that you made that choice? And I know I did not make her feel good. I mean, she said it. I made her feel like shit for a lot of decisions and perspectives that she had. Made her feel like shit. And who knows what that did to her? Who knows if that just made her do more of it? I don't know. I just know that me being in her life definitely brought her a lot of headache and heartache. And her being in mine brought me a lot. See you guys in the next diary entry.
Wow, that was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The Daily Saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.